Welcome to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit. In a bold strike amid escalating U.S. China trade tensions, Beijing has frozen all Boeing aircraft deliveries, leaving over 130 jets undelivered and billions in deals stalled on the tarmac. This isn't just turbulence for Boeing, it's an open runway for Airbus and China's own COMAC to soar. As the American aerospace titan loses altitude, rivals are circling, and the U.S. could face long-term fallout in global trade and industrial dominance. Here's how this high-stakes power shift is unfolding, and why it matters far beyond the skies. Boeing's China breakdown. A strategic alliance stalls. For years, Boeing and China enjoyed a high-flying relationship, with China accounting for around 15% of Boeing's global commercial aircraft deliveries. This wasn't just a big market. It was an essential one. But that runway came to a screeching halt when Beijing told its domestic carriers to hit pause on Boeing purchases, a direct counter to the U.S.'s 145% tariffs on Chinese imports. This retaliatory move by Beijing followed the U.S.'s sharp tariff hikes on Chinese imports, part of the Trump administration's broader hardline trade stance. The timing? Brutal. Boeing already had 737 MAX jets prepped and painted for Chinese airlines, now rerouted or returned stateside like stranded luggage. Over 130 aircraft orders from China are effectively grounded, not by technical issues, but by geopolitics. This isn't just a red alert for Boeing's quarterly revenue. The company could bleed billions in lost deals. But worse, its future presence in the Chinese market now hangs by a thread. And when Boeing hurts, the whole U.S. aerospace ecosystem feels the pain. From fuselage fabricators to engine tech firms, aviation, like the auto world, thrives on finely tuned logistics and long-term partnerships. When a supply chain stutters at this scale, the aftershocks hit maintenance crews, export hubs, and yes, even auto suppliers who share cross-industry vendors. But Boeing's financial headache is just the first wave, because the broader American industry is bracing for impact next. Turbulence on the ground, economic and industrial shockwaves. Boeing isn't just an aircraft company, it's a pillar of American industry, supporting 140,000 direct jobs, with an extended supply chain that touches virtually every major state with a manufacturing backbone. Now imagine that machine stalling. The freeze on Chinese deliveries risks massive job cuts, especially among suppliers producing avionics, composites, and jet propulsion systems, many of whom also manufacture components used in heavy-duty vehicles, trucks, and even electric drivetrain systems. Boeing's estimated $10 to $12 billion in annual Chinese revenue was critical to its global R&D programs. Programs that include fuel efficiency research and materials innovation, tech that often spills over into the automotive realm. Cut that funding, and we could see innovation in multiple sectors sputter. Add to that the drag from existing hurdles, 737 MAX reputational scars, post-pandemic supply disruptions, and Airbus gaining altitude. Boeing's hit isn't isolated. It's an echo across industries that share manufacturing DNA. Even more concerning? China's decision to wield aviation as a geopolitical weapon could set a dangerous precedent. If economic retaliation becomes the new norm, we might be seeing the dawn of industrial protectionism, where trade war casualties start popping up in unexpected garages, including auto showrooms. And speaking of rivals, as Boeing's wings are clipped, let's look at who's ready to soar higher. If you're enjoying this breakdown, hit that like button and subscribe to Piston Pundit for more sharp takes on autos, trade, and the tech shaping our industrial future. Now, let's shift gears and steer into Airbus and COMAC, filling the skies Boeing leaves behind. As Boeing's jet stream fades in China, rivals are stepping on the gas, or rather throttling up their turbines. Airbus, long viewed as Boeing's European counterpart, is rapidly expanding in China, with a final assembly plant in Tianjin and deep ties to state-backed carriers. Recently, Taiwan's China Airlines locked in an order for 10 Airbus A350-1000s, while COMAC, China's own aerospace challenger, is accelerating production of its C-919 narrow-body jet. The numbers are hard to ignore. Over 1,000 orders, mostly domestic, and ambitions to crank out 75 jets annually by year's end, aiming for 200 by 2029. The C-919 may still rely on Western engines and avionics, but China's play is clear: self-sufficiency and market dominance. And while COMAC's international certification efforts remain grounded by regulatory hurdles, the longer Boeing is benched, the more runway its rivals have to soar. This realignment is more than market noise. It's reshaping the future of global aviation alliances. A reshaped aviation market might also shift how trade lanes and industrial alliances evolve, and that could mean new players, new rules, and new costs in both aviation and auto manufacturing. And if the skies are changing, the geopolitical weather forecast isn't any calmer either. Trade turbulence, Boeing, and the bigger battlefield. The halt in Boeing aircraft deliveries is just one jet stream in a much larger weather system, the broader geopolitical storm between the U.S. and China. This isn't just about tariffs and retaliations, it's about two global giants clashing over influence, innovation, and industrial supremacy. For China, pausing Boeing orders is a triple win. It hits back at Washington's tariff barrage, boosts its own aerospace sector, COMAC is smiling, and reinforces its long-term ambition for technological independence. It's Beijing's way of saying, we won't just play your trade game, we'll change the rules. For the U.S., the fallout is a harsh reminder of how deeply its economic engine is tied to its global competitors. Boeing's struggles spotlight just how vulnerable major corporations can be when geopolitics enters the cockpit. But the blast radius doesn't end in aviation. Agriculture, energy, tech, entire American industries are in Beijing's crosshairs. Uncertainty like this gums up investment, rattles supply chains, and dims global growth. It also tests the very framework of global trade. If economic retaliation becomes the new diplomacy, then Boeing's crisis might just be the first chapter in a much longer story. So where does Boeing go from here? And is there any way to regain lost altitude? Sky recovery. Can Boeing navigate a new flight plan? As U.S. China tensions climb, a diplomatic off-ramp remains possible. Both nations understand the mutual value of stability, especially in high-stakes industries like aerospace. In the short term, sector-specific talks, modest tariff rollbacks, or joint ventures could ease the pressure. For Boeing, survival means agility. That includes diversifying its customer base, strengthening ties in Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Africa, and accelerating innovation in modular aircraft and alternative manufacturing hubs. The goal? Reduce reliance on politically risky markets and build resilience into the supply chain. Still, much hinges on political will. If the tariff war rages on, a return to pre-2025 trade norms looks distant. Yet economic pain can shift priorities. Losses in revenue, jobs, or GDP may force both sides back to the negotiating table. Boeing, meanwhile, is lobbying hard in D.C., warning that long-term exclusion from China could cripple America's edge in global aviation. This isn't just about aircraft. It's about a broader industrial battle where corporate strategy meets geopolitics. However this plays out, the aviation world and global trade won't emerge unchanged. But if you think this has been intense, wait until you see how the endgame unfolds. Verdict: Boeing versus Beijing, a high-stakes game of sky chess. Let's be honest, this isn't a routine dispute over aircraft. It's a high-altitude power play. Boeing, with decades of American aerospace dominance behind it, now finds itself grounded by political gravity. Meanwhile, China sees an opening to fast-track its ambitions with COMAC at the helm. Up to $50 billion in Boeing market value is hanging in the balance. If that doesn't send warning lights flashing across corporate boardrooms and trade offices worldwide, what will? So now we ask, is Boeing's China freeze a short-term stall or a permanent reroute in global aviation? Can diplomacy untangle this standoff, or are we witnessing the new normal in trade warfare? And how should other U.S. industries prepare if they're next in line? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's hear from the pit crew. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a beat on the next big shift in autos, trade, and technology. Stay sharp, stay curious, and thanks for making Piston Pundit your ultimate pit stop. See you next time. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.